Hello, Colts Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast. As always, I am one of two dudes talking Colts. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Burton, and I'm joined by my buddy Zach Boyd. And so we didn't live stream last week. There's a reason behind that.
Yeah. I tell you, Stephen, doing the live stream thing is a thing that we love to do, interacting with our fans. But sometimes you gotta take a little bit of a break from it. I'm interested to see how this live stream goes. There's Reed already popping in. Hey, what up, Reed? We're going to talk about we're going to get the bad taste out of our mouth, and we're going to talk about Colts Dolphins, right? Like, I think everybody is just exhausted from the 0-3 start, and who's to blame, who's this, who's that. I'm pretty much over that part as well as a fan. It's time to talk about Colts Dolphins. It's time to talk about how can we possibly, get into the win column for the first time in the season. And I think that we'll have some valid reasons why I think we can get into the win column. But as always, when we start the show, we ask people to like, rate, review, subscribe to YouTube. We're going for 500 this week, guys. That's right, 500 viewers, subscribers.
We are Phillip Rivers or Michael Strawn away from it, you guys. We're like 17. I think as of the last time we looked, 17
Absolutely.
away.
Yeah, 17.
That's easy. Away. That's easy for no horsing.
Yep, and like we always do, we ask you just to join the No Horsing family, man. So, Steve, I'll let you kick it off, and anybody, feel free to like these comments up. We'd love to have your interaction today.
Yeah, so before we get into, we're going to go Dolphins, like we always do. This is kind of it's Wednesday. It's where we start. We've put it behind us. You've gotten my wife laughed at my recap video because it was a whole lot of me just saying the word tough. So, and then you had Zach's, and then we've had some other things. And so today's the day that we kind of jump forward a little bit. But before we do that, we've got some team updates, some little quick hitters before we get into the Dolphins stuff and looking ahead to the game. Obviously the big one is the Marlon Mack news that they have mutually agreed to seek a trade for Marlon Mack. There's a lot of, and we won't spend a lot of time on this,
right?
But there's a lot of teams that got dropped into me, and I would love it. I'm just going to put this out there. We're going to touch on this, but I would love it if you're in here right now. And I need to say a disclaimer. I thought about this too. If you are watching on Twitter, okay, there's a recent update to the platform that we have that has limited your ability to comment in the chat. So if you are watching on Twitter, thank you. But if you want to interact, you're going to have to go over to YouTube. So I want to give that disclaimer. But if you're in here, I'm curious to see, because I've had several people mention teams to me. I'm curious, Reed, I'm looking at you because you're in here right now too, on who you think would be a good potential trade partner. Because some of the teams I'm hearing, I think they're great, but I don't really like the idea of it.
Yeah, I tell you. So, Reed, just real quick, we'll get to your question. That's a great question, and we'll try to pop it back up here in a second when we get to the question segment. Just doing a quick team update. Marlon Mack, the obvious ones. You hear the Ravens. That would be a little bit odd, that we're going to play them in week 5. That we would trade him anytime before week 5 and have to play against them would be a little bit of a slap in the face to Marlon Mack, honestly. You're hearing a little bit about the 49ers would have a little bit of interest. I tell you a team that might have a little bit of intrigue, for not a whole lot, and we have a history of doing of trading a lot with them is the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni knows a lot about Marlon Mack. And I got to say, that is another place that I can see him going. But I want to temper expectations when it comes to Marlon Mack, Stephen, because I don't think we're going to get a whole lot for him in return.
Right.
My guess is a 6th-round pick. If it's a 7th-round pick, I probably just keep Marlon, honestly. Like what for? Like at least get a 5th or a 6th-round pick. I've heard people say, 3rd and 4th rounder. Guys, I don't think that's going to happen, man. I don't think that there's any way of it, and that would be like one of Chris Ballard's ultimate power moves if he were able to get like a 3rd round pick from Marlon Mack.
And the teams you're hearing aren't those teams that are going to get fleeced. They're
even
good
the
teams.
Patriots would be an interesting one. I thought
that's one. That's a big one that I heard today because James White is out for the season now.
Yeah,
and
kind of
the reason I joked, well, and the reason I laughed, and really quickly, I want to make sure I'm getting all these. Read throughout San Francisco is a great one because they have always kind of been very inconsistent with the health of their running backs. Adam's here, Adam Raymer. Yeah, Adam Raymer, baby. I'll throw it up there. Adam's here. Matthew brought up a great point. Too late for the Ravens a little bit. They have invested a ton. Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell. They've invested a lot there. But Matthew brings up Denver and possibly Atlanta. On call pod brings up Dayball. That's he's not talking about Matt going to Chicago. He's talking about Brian Dayball and then firing Matt Nagy. Maybe we'll get to that later. New England is the one. So the reason I don't like some of the selections is you do hear Ravens, who we play. You do hear New England, which we play, but they do make a lot of sense. Like
they do.
New England's makes a ton of sense right now. You do have a history with New England. I like the Eagles one. That one's really interesting. Sirianni knows what he would get there. We also know Sirianni has a deep affection for Marlon Mack. I mean, just look no further than him wearing 25 on his hat all season last year, kind of an homage to Mack being out. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but I 100% agree with the tempering of expectations. If this was 2 years ago and you were looking to trade him before you picked Jonathan Taylor coming off of 1,000-yard season, maybe you could get like a third.
Yeah.
But where he's sitting, coming off the Achilles, no one really knows how he looks outside of the Colts because of practices and training camp. You're not going to get a ton. So, take what you can get, I think, is what Ballard's going to do. And I think and I don't want to get it turned around with Marlon either. I don't think it's him demanding. I think it's a respect. They know he's not going to get the carries here, and they want him to go. Ballard always wants the players to go thrive.
And I think he's going to play for a contender, honestly, too, Steven. Like it doesn't make sense to give up any capital for a player where he's not going to impact this season because he's only under a 1-year contract. You almost feel like teams that are in that win now mode, they're looking through all of those situations. You feel like a playoff caliber team would be one team that would come in and pounce, maybe a 6th-round pick. Absolutely. I don't think we're going to spend a whole lot more time on it, but we just thought it'd be cool to touch on that part. Let's hop into some injuries. Some bright news with all of the injury reports. Sam Ehlinger did come back to practice today. I think he has a week transition here. I think that's the way the IR rules work. He gets to practice 1 week without counting against the team. Next Tuesday, they have a decision to make. And we're probably going to have a podcast, when that comes all around to it, just depending on how the progression of this week goes, listening to Frank Reich. We'd like to hear you guys comment down here today. Who do you think wins out, Ehlinger or Eason? We've been fighting about this all, preseason. Now it's coming back around. It looks like it's maybe going to come back down to, Ehlinger versus Eason. Not to toot my own horn, but I think it was our second podcast that we ever did. I did predict that Ehlinger would beat out Jacob Eason. Definitely not in this fashion. This is very, unique very and weird. How everything's going. And it's just kind of an odd thing how Jacob Eason slid down this, this depth chart in such a quick fashion. But that being said, Big Q doesn't look like he's going to play. He said he called it a long shot. And, Chris Reed played well enough last week. He's a veteran. I don't know that I would go out there and just, you don't want to end – you don't want to end in Big Q's season before it even gets started. If there is any hope to going into the playoffs and all of that stuff, I want to say a big shout out to Moby. He's from back home, man. He follows us on here when we do these lives. It's cool to see him on here and interacting. He says it'll Inside the Horseshoe podcast says it'll probably be Ehlinger winning. I get the feeling that the Colts are more confident with Sam, and I do too. I don't claim to be an insider. I don't claim to have sources. That always annoys me when people, on my level say we have sources. But I do have some good people that are actually working in this industry and that I've talked to a little bit off the record. And what I've got from that is that Frank Reich trusts Ellinger a little bit more at this stage right now. He trusts him. He knows he's limited, but he knows what he's got with Sam Ellinger. Not as much with Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason's just a wild card, man. And you get what you get. You get that big arm, but you get a 100-mile-an-hour fastball every single time with Jacob Eason. I don't care who he's throwing to, whether it's a running back or it's 70 yards down the field. It's about the same velocity. What are your thoughts on the injury report and just kind of how we're going right now, Stephen?
Well, I think I want to say, was it George that said it's like the weekly scroll? Like there's so many people that don't practice, and depending on where you sit, and we've talked about this, me and you off air quite a bit. There's a lot of toxicity almost inside Colts Nation right now towards this team and towards this season, the coaching staff, the organization. And so now you hear a whole lot of people being like, well, Darius isn't healthy, sit him. Well, Wentz isn't healthy, sit. Like if you see that they didn't practice or they were limited, well, let's just sit them because we're 0-3. It's we've talked about this 14-game season. There is a lot. I have questions a little bit about, I'm good with Quentin taking a seat, get healthy. He's too good. It's interesting because today, at least, Quentin, this scares me depending on what we see tomorrow. Quentin, Braden, and Fisher, none of them practiced today. So that's a huge chunk of your line. That does
Fisher,
make me
though,
nervous.
was a rest day. I think if
okay. See that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But if I saw that, the first thing I see is that, and you're like, man, that gives me a high level of concern.
100%.
You texted me with Ellinger. I like that. It's crazy to me to think that he's gained more trust with Frank, with Reich than Eason at this point. But I think the interesting thing, we talked about him all preseason, is he seems to play within the system a little bit better. And it's going to sound really weird. I thought about this because when the whole Nick Foles thing came up in the preseason when Wentz went down, a thing that kept being discussed is, does Frank do better with people who are slightly less talented because they have to work within his system? And that would probably be Sam. Also, Sam matches up as a backup with his traits outside of his size to Wentz a lot better. The offense doesn't have to completely change for him. So, I mean, I'm interested to see kind of this next week, the following week, because obviously Brett Hundley is the backup.
Yeah.
Eason is the third string yet again. And I think we could see a complete flip of that room, like you said, next week, going into the Baltimore game, of having Ellinger be the backup and Hundley be the third. And I don't know what's going to happen. Eason's a 4th-round pick. He's not a top 2. He's not a 2nd-round pick. He's not a 1st-round pick. I mean, literally, Matthew said it. Eason about to get cut. I mean, I'm not going to go that far, but his butt could end up on. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes over the next couple of weeks as Wentz gets him. As long as there's no setbacks, and you're looking in the best case scenario of what they've said, it's just this a little bit better each week, and in a few weeks he'll be 100%.
Yeah. That's a fantastic point. And before we get into the Dolphins preview, Inside the Horseshoe podcast said I would only sit the Wentz because, if he's still hurt, you don't want to see it get worse, especially if we're going to run, just want him healthy in December. Yeah. And that's the hard part about being a coach, right? Like that's a hard part about making those decisions. If you don't win now, it won't matter in December. But if you play them now and you win now, maybe you don't have them in December. So, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It seems like, though, just from playing, his ankles, were less stiff. That's the way it was described today. Maybe he has the ability to kind of heal up a little bit better. It's encouraging that it was a limited participant today. Like that wasn't expected. I think tomorrow's a pre-scheduled rest day for him. So I wouldn't go crazy if he doesn't practice tomorrow and then probably come back Friday and try to give it a go as well. But yeah, it's gonna.
And I was going to say, like we said too, anything is better than, he's got to be healthier than last week. I told you, we talked throughout the day. I was physically at the game in Tennessee, and it it was not good to see. Like, he did not look himself. I think I told everyone he was the last guy out of the locker room. Now, he came sprinting out, but there was no run. There was no jog. There was walking gingerly everywhere. And then, talking to my buddy Adam Raymer, the television broadcast, he made it look worse. He looked even worse. And then kind of possibly coming to find out that he was probably about 50% for that game, which was below what I thought. I thought he wouldn't play if he was below 75. So there seems to be hope that he could be like 80 or 90%. I don't know. The dude has he has magical healing powers. It's like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I expected that whole game, honestly, at any point. I was like, okay, Brett Hundley's going to come in this game at any point. And he just kept
warmed up so many times.
So, your guess is as good as mine. You want to talk about this Dolphins preview, man? I mean,
let's jump forward. Let's
flush it away. Let's talk about, the week ahead. Let's get all of that crap out of our way. I know we're all just pissed off because of the start, and we can talk about that. You guys can comment here. You're doing a great job. Steven's doing his best to keep your stuff.
I try, you guys.
Yeah.
I try.
Nice to see some other people in here. Joey's in here. And then, Inside the Horseshoe podcast, awesome. We're a fan. I'm glad he's on here. He always has great insights. So I want to start on the offensive side of the ball, if that's okay with you. I'll start with the opponent. I'll start with the Dolphins. It's interesting, as I was kind of prepping for this podcast this afternoon, Stephen, this is the first team that we've played this year that doesn't have, and Rick Venturi is probably one of my favorite all-time, Colts guys. He's just a football guy. I love it. I love his candidness and everything. And he calls them ambient players that keep a coach up at night, right? I
love that term.
But I don't really see a lot of that with the Dolphins. This is the first time that we've played a team that, we went against, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf. We thought it was going to be A.J. Brown and Julio and Derrick Henry, and all of these players. They have the rookie, Waddle, but kind of inconsistent and kind of a one-trick pony right now. They don't have an explosive offense. And we all full well know how Jacoby Brissett plays, right? We had him in our building for several years. He had multiple auditions as the starting quarterback at the Indianapolis Colts, and he didn't do very well for us. You gotta feel like this week, Stephen, if you can't beat a Jacoby Brissett football team, it's not gonna happen, man. I mean, I hate to be doom and gloom and super negative. But, man, you got to have a win, right? You got to have a win against that offense. And then, I'm just curious your thoughts on the Dolphins offense this week.
So I guess there's a couple of players.
Gesicki would be the one guy I would be most concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, so not Matthew says that Jacoby's comp this year is probably the last year he started for us, which was 2 years ago. He didn't look great. We know. And if there's ever a quarterback that your defense could have a get-right game, and I love Jacoby. Y'all see me. I mean, I'm not doing it tonight, obviously, but I have the Jacoby shirt. I mean, I do. The dude is a great guy. He played his heart out for the Colts, but he has a ceiling, and I feel like he does have less offensive talent around him in Miami than he did here in Indy. There are a couple of players that pique my interest on their offense. But Jalen Waddle, very talented, speedster guy, still getting his legs under him as a pro.
Yeah.
Devontae Parker worries me slightly. He's a very talented receiver. Honestly, Will Fuller probably scares me the most on their offense because he's done it to us before. Now, granted, he had Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball, not Jacoby. But it does that. He concerns me. The question with that is, goes back to the same thing with Jacoby is Jacoby's got a cannon for an arm, one of the strongest arms in the league, but he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat sometimes. So can he hit Will Fuller if he blows the top off the defense? I don't know. I want to make sure I drop this in here. Wentz season is here. She's not even pissed anymore. Just laugh because we can't do anything about injuries. Glad you're here. Glad you're feeling good. Let's get peppy. We have a lot of chitter chatter going back and forth. And dropped in a really interesting comment from me. Fuller missed practice today with an injury. I did not know that. I thought this was going to be one of his first games he was active. That would help me feel a little better. That would make me feel a little bit better. Like I said, with Fuller worries me a little because he's done it to us before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like he's had some past experiences. Inside the Horseshoe podcast, he makes a great point. Jacoby can have those games where he looks really, really good, and he can have those games where he doesn't look good at all. We're open for him to not look good at all, right? Like I would love that. We need an opportunity, to go out there and just feel good about our football team, in particular our defense. Our defense to me has just been stagnant and flat. Even the guys that you really count on, Steven, as far as on the defensive side, Darius Leonard is playing hurt, obviously. I think anybody who knows Darius Leonard knows he's gutting it out, but man, the dude is hurt, dude. I mean, he's just not. I mean, he looked like he had, a Mack truck on his back when he got that interception. Like he could not move at all. And you just hate it for him, man, because he's out there doing it for the right reasons. The guy just signed a huge contract and he wants to go out there and earn it. And you got to appreciate that. So I feel so bad ragging on a player like that, when they're not playing at the top level. We got to get healthy, and we got to have a game this week against Jacoby Brissett. We want bad Jacoby this week, right? I'm going to start a theme, man. We want bad Jacoby this week. That's what we want as far as that goes. Let's flip over to our offense. Let's talk about our offense before we get on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, for us, I thought last week was our first week that we started to have some sort of an identity as a run team. We're going up against a pretty damn good defense this week, honestly. And the thing about Brian Flores is he comes from that Bill Belichick pedigree, right? And we all know, Bill Belichick, it's exotic. His defenses, he disguises, he shows blitz, he backs off blitz, he comes from one side, he comes from the other side. It's just this constant. It's almost like in college basketball when a team presses you for 40 minutes, man. I mean, over time, that mentally wears you down. That's what that does. That defense is designed to make you make mistakes and just get exhausted from all day long having to process all this data and all this information. And they're planning on, as the game goes on, they're planning on and counting on that quarterback breaking down and making a bad read, when the game counts, and getting some turnovers. But that being said, we have to stick to our calling card. We have to run the football, man. We got to run the football. And we haven't given an opportunity for Jonathan Taylor to run the ball in the fourth quarter, man. I mean, like really, really, really show a commitment, double down, and just say, you know what, man, we're going to run this other football team over, and we're going to constantly put our team in third and short and make things on Carson a lot less difficult. There's a big difference between 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 9 in the NFL. 3rd and 2 is very manageable, and most teams can draw up a play to get that 2-3 yards. Getting the 9 yards against really good defenses, that closes in, man. Super Alien 86, he says, if Taylor doesn't get 25 plus touches, we're going to riot. I'll be honest with you. I'm all for it, man. I would. I mean, like, honest to God, if you told me Monday morning that Taylor got 25 touches and Hines got 15 touches, that'd be 40 total touches. I'd be freaking out, man. I mean, I'd be so damn excited about that, just because that's the identity that we want, that we need to go back to. Not that we necessarily want to go back to. We need to go to that identity. We need to help our football team out. And I know it can be a little frustrating early on in the game when you're only getting 1, 2, and 3 yards of carry. But eventually, you saw it last week. Taylor started ripping things off, and he kept getting bigger gains and bigger gains as the game goes on. He's a body blow guy, man, and you got to give him the opportunity to do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement. I am. I want to make sure that, like you said, we always try to get to you guys when you guys pop in here. Shout out to Super Alien 86. it looks to me like you are a committed person who's watched on Twitter, but made the jump over to YouTube. So if you did and you've not subscribed, hey, make sure you hit the subscribe button for this one.
Join the family, man.
Yes, join the family. Catch us on YouTube from now on. And that right there, guys, is what we talked about earlier. Twitter's not letting you guys make the comments. Just jump over to YouTube, hit the subscribe, and start making comments. As I look through, I mean, it's yes, run the ball, run the damn ball, period. I thought this was interesting that Joey Buttafuoco said he keeps seeing Maniac liking tweets about people talking shit about him. We know he does that. He definitely, he will feed that in him. But, I mean, they have the Dolphins on their side for them. They do have one of, let's not get confused. They do have one of the premier corners in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
And we do. I mean, I feel confident in saying he's probably going to travel with Pittman Jr. I mean, the way he's played the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at kind of keys, it's running the ball. It's running the ball. I mean, Super Alien put out averaging 6 yards a carry against the Titans, and Reich took the ball out of his hands. It's concerning.
Preaching to the choir, brother.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. It's a game flow thing. I was at the game, like I've said, and people didn't want Taylor. I mean, I can tell you from experience, people didn't want Taylor. The two players on the team that scared the Titans fans were Taylor and it was Pittman Jr. Two of our youngest players, obviously, too. But we don't know. That's the key with this, is that we don't know where Carson sits. And you could watch the game last week and see everyone knew he would never take off. I don't know where he's at with that, if he'd be willing to take off more to pick up like a 5-yard, maybe not the 10 or 15 that we're used to seeing. But you make it easier. Just turn around. He doesn't need to be throwing the ball 40 times.
No.
He needs to be throwing the ball, I would say 25.
Not even when he's healthy.
To 30.
Like, not even when he's healthy, he doesn't need to be throwing the ball 40
times.
Turn
the ball and hand it to Taylor.
Let's just use what we have and not get so frustrated. Colts loyalists, so glad to see him hopping on here.
Yes.
I hope our offensive line can work together in the second level. I'm interested to see how good the communication will be. Colts loyalists, drop another comment. What did you think about Chris Reed's game? I thought he played pretty well. I don't think we noticed a whole lot with Big Q going out of that game. I'm not at all comparing him to Quentin Nelson, but I'm saying what you want from your backup is a guy to come in and not really notice that he's the backup on the field. And I didn't see that. And I actually saw him climb into the second level a little bit in that game.
Let him loose. That's that. I mean,
exactly.
Not to jump in on you, but that's my O-lineman. And we've talked to Derek. Derek was an O-lineman. Derek Larger was an O-lineman in high school, and we've talked to him. I've talked to him. O-linemen, they want to run block. Yeah. They want to road grade. Let them go, man. Let them go do it.
It's also important, Steven. I think we need to have some more tosses on the outside. We don't get out on the perimeter a lot. I know we're a power football team, but I would say that we need to mix it up a little bit, and that way they're not always sandbagging us up in the middle. And a lot of times if you'll notice that game, you'll go watch that all 22. The linebackers are just sucking in on that A gap and that B gap, man. They're not worried about us going on the outside. The threat of us running on the perimeter just 1, 2, 3 times a game will keep them honest and really kind of open up some of those holes. And I feel like Jonathan Taylor's legs are underneath of him. We're going to have a big test against this defense. It could be an ugly game, man. Like, this could be like a if you're a fantasy football fan, this could be a field kicker's haven this weekend. You could see I mean, dude, honest to God, you could see like 8 or 9 field goals made in this football game. It's going to be wild as far as that goes. One thing that we did last week, Steven, that I thought would be cool, we always open it up and give the opportunity. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If you guys want to DM Steven on Twitter, he can send you the link to StreamYard, and we'll pop you guys in here, man. We'll give you a little shine if you have some comments or whatever. We'll throw you right up here and add you to this cast if you'd like to do that. If not, just keep feeding the comments, and we'll keep going as it goes. One thing I want to double back on our offense, I really, really, really think that we have to get more crossers on this offensive wide receiver group. These guys are not running those drags and those crosses like they did with Phillip Rivers last year, and that's really what they're good at. Like, we don't have these freak wide receivers that are like, Tyreek Hill, these real fidgety, twitchy wide receivers who just, bounce in and out of routes and in and out of their breaks. We need those guys to get out and run away from those people and the defensive backs that they're going against, man. So it's very important to get those crossing routes going. And it's also going to allow our football team to eventually hit you over on those over routes, dragging a guy all the way across the field. And the next thing you know, you've got a tight end slanting all the way, down the field for 30 or 40 yards. Use Kylen Granson. If you drafted him in the 4th round and you didn't pick an offensive lineman, which you should have, in my opinion, might as well use the guy who's physically gifted and probably your best route running guy. I know they're scared to death because he didn't have good ball security in the preseason, but he's either going to have to play and he's good enough to play on this football team, or he's not. Can't. That doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't guard him from that. So we'll see. Cam Robinson, he's got run the ball and dial up more slants. That's exactly what I said. I just need to see more defensive pride in the red zone. 100%, dude. I mean, 100%. Where are you at?
Well, real quick shout out. There's my wife. Yes, one of the first ladies of No Horsing chiming in. Joey said the same thing too. Use Kyle Granson. You did draft him for a reason. The crossing routes are big because the kind of receivers. Let's be honest about our receivers too, right? They are kind of catch the ball and go. They're not outside of let's say Strawn, who's a big body, and Pittman's a big guy. And we talked about in the preseason and the offseason, we wanted to see more jump balls and stuff, but he still very much he can run and he can catch and run.
Yeah.
And he does well on those crossers.
Yeah.
And when TY gets back, he does well. And Pascal does well. Paris. So you got to hit those. But I'll tell you, and I noticed this, and I was talking to somebody about it from the last game, is it does for those to work too. They do have to be quick. The line does need to hold. There were plays in the last game, I think. I want to say I may have been watching Lawrence, and he was breaking it down. And there were plays where it was there, where the crosser was there, but Wentz just didn't have the time. When you have someone sitting in your lap. The big one everyone talks about from last week is the end zone, where Pittman came across the middle. It was there. He didn't have I'm not going to say he didn't have time on that one. He missed that throw a little bit. He put it a little bit further, but you got to hit those. It'll loosen up the defense.
Yep.
When you loosen up the defense and they get a little more nervous, then you're going to be able to kind of turn around, get the ball to JT, let him run a little bit. And then, as Carson gets healthier too, and hopefully let's hope that if he was 50% last week and he looks better this week, let's hope he's 80. Let's hope he can kind of scare slightly with his legs, because that we know from experience on the defensive side of the ball, that does cause a defense to play you differently. They're not going to just pin their ears back because you just right up the middle.
Yeah.
Reed has a great question too. Is what's the fix for the red zone, dude? If I knew, I'd be on the Colts coaching staff. I have no idea, man. Zach, what do you? I'm gonna let you go, and then I want to see if I can. I'm gonna process my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the red zone, their biggest issue, one of their strongest suits that they have had in the past, is that their linebackers can cover, right? Those flats and those tight ends and in those creases, they could really cover. Right now, Darius is not feeling well. He's not playing 100%. He's not able. He's late on everything. You notice, was it McKissick, I guess, who end up, or McKinnon or whatever, end up getting that touchdown at the end to kind of seal the game for the Titans. Just nobody was there. Nobody had that responsibility to that flat route, and he just walked it in. We've got to be better. I mean, we've just got to be more sound. We've got to have that 7 guy to the ball mentality too. There's no aggressiveness. There's no confidence. There's no swagger with this defense right now. They look like a beaten up, battered, confused bunch of players. And we didn't have that last year. Those guys look confident, even on the games that we didn't play well, or if we got beat on a touchdown, they come right back out and say, all right, we're going to make a play, man. So, yeah, I mean,
well, you had a great point too with Leonard. I was going to say on the local on local radio here, even they noticed that.
Yeah,
because most of the time when he gets an interception, I think their words on the radio was it's rocket fuel for a linebacker. Like you're ready to go, man. And he had no giddy up.
nothing.
He had no giddy up on him. I feel like he probably thinks he has to play. You know? And then I'm going to say it for the first time. Kevin Bowen jokes with us. Okereke. Not Okariki, Okereke, which is apparently the correct way to say his name. God loved people, and I love him for the fact that people have said it wrong for 2 years, and he was like, I've just kind of rolled with it. Now I feel like I can correct you. But he played better this week. I see improvements. I do.
He's got to be better
where they're going.
He's got to be better. He's out of place a lot of times. One thing that, as we hop over to on the defensive side, but especially the Dolphins, Coach Loyola said he's afraid the secondary is going to sell out and jump those short routes. I'd have to 100% agree. Like, until the Indianapolis Colts can prove two things: A, their line can hold up, and B, they can beat them deep, they're gonna sit on those routes all day long. Like, and why wouldn't you? Because there's no reason to think that we're going to throw the ball 50, 60 yards down the field, because we haven't done it. We haven't done it because we haven't had the line that could hold up long enough to let Carson Wentz flip that ball out there. I know that we had that good throw to Michael Pittman Jr. He kind of undercut that pass, but we just haven't had any explosive dynamic plays. And I think that's the most frustrating part for me. And that's the one thing. And before the season started, I said T.Y. Hilton was so important to this football team. And that's one of the reasons why. Like, he's the one guy that can take the top off, right? Like, you have to respect that. And if you don't, he's going to beat you down the field almost every single time. We don't have a player like that right now on offense. We have all of these physical underneath, short intermediate route runners, but we don't have a real, dynamic guy. That's kind of why I'm a little bit confused that we dressed DeMichael Harris last week, but we didn't play him. I thought that's the way we were going to use DeMichael Harris. I thought we were going to let him use his explosiveness and kind of maybe go down the field and run some deeper routes. Did not. I mean, the Dolphins in general have a very good back end. They've got Christian Wilkins on the front line. I mean, they're a physical football team. Like I said, he's designed that football team as best as he can in a short amount of time he's been there to try to emulate the New England Patriots.
He's come the closest of any Patriot assistant to doing it. He is a good coach.
Yeah,
he is a very good coach.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, when you're talking offensive too, when season brought up, Brady said today Granson is getting better and his snaps should increase. And I wanted to point this out. Shout out Young Money. They need to use Mo Alley Cox more. I can tell you that I've had several Titans friends go, who the hell was that? Like, when he made the catch, because he's so large. And in the stadium, I had Titans fans around me saying, who on earth is that? Like, they didn't know who he was. Yeah. I'd love to see that. And then Joey Bafuco has a great thing. Better block. This is cure to the red zone. Better blocking, better play calling, stop running up the middle, run more outside runs. I'm going to be honest with this. I want to dive into this really quickly, and I want to get your opinion too. I love the comment. I feel like the only thing, though, is this better blocking. So the better play calling goes with if one of these runs gets in, we're not questioning. I think the stark thing for me was 2 weeks ago against the Rams is we ran 4 times up the middle, and we complained, rightfully so, but we had complained in the Buffalo game. Why didn't you just give it to JT up the middle? So we do that. And then, as bad as the pitch was, the little shovel pass, we got creative and still nothing. When they start converting them to 7 and the plays start actually going in, all the play calling looks great then. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, it looks like genius when it works, but sometimes it doesn't. I just want him in the end zone. Yeah, I don't care.
That's fair, but to be fair to the fans, I think more than anything is I can say what I've seen from Frank this year that I haven't seen in years past. He lacks creativity, and I understand the circumstances. A, you've got a quarterback running for their life. B, you've got one who's just, I mean, there's nobody on that football field last week that did not know that Carson Wentz was injured. Like, I mean, Stevie Wonder could have seen that Carson Wentz was injured last week. I mean, it was bad, especially on that first play, man. I thought, oh, my gosh, this dude can literally not move. He can't move 3 inches,
It was like watching Phillip Rivers again.
It worked
in the pocket.
It was worse. I mean, it was scary almost. I was like, he's going to get hurt. He is going to get hurt today because he is just a complete statue.
Fun inside knowledge is that you texted me and said they have to take him out of the game. I think my response was, and I've told everyone this was, I don't think he was going to let them. Last week was a point for him, but I don't think he was ever going to let Frank take him out of the game.
Yeah, I mean,
in detriment too, because he could have gotten very hurt. He could have gotten. I'm 100% agreement. He could have gotten very, very hurt last week. But I digress.
Throw up a Y23K's comment. We'll talk about that here in a second. Should Chris Reed move over for Glowinski? I don't know. I mean, he's been hit and miss. I mean, when you watched him in the preseason games, he was good one game. He was not so good. He's just an up and down, lukewarm guy. I don't know if that's good enough to really replace Glowinski because they know what they have with Glowinski. Glowinski's a guy probably in his last years in the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, they're not going to sign him back. I can't imagine the Colts sign him back. They're probably going to go younger. They've already spent a ton of money. They're going to have to re-up Quentin Nelson next year anyways. The cap's going to get much tighter, moving forward. With his football team, I always thought that Danny Pittner would take over for Glowinski. Honestly, he's been hurt a lot. He just hasn't been super healthy. But I always thought that he would. But I think that's a fair assessment. I think it could happen. Colt Loyalist says Eberflus has to confuse Jacoby enough times to help create a couple turnovers. He's good at protecting the ball, but I think the D is going to score this weekend. Yeah. And Jacoby can be confused, man. Like we have seen it, and we've seen it firsthand. Like you can get into Jacoby's head. I mean, pretty well. I mean, you can really get into. He doesn't scare me. He may go out here and have the game of his life against us this weekend, but he doesn't scare me. He's a guy that honestly, you probably would want to be a little more exotic than you normally are because he's practiced against this football team. He's probably more comfortable throwing the football against this team than anybody because he's practiced for a couple of years against this same defense. You probably want to have a few new wrinkles. You probably want to have some looks that that he's seen for the last couple of years, and you think, we're going to completely run something different here. Like we're just going to completely switch this up where it looks like he just thinks in his head, all right, I know they're blitzing me right now. And then we just back off, catch him on those underneath routes.
Oh, Lordy. Okay. Before I say something, I have to pop up Lawrence. Lawrence said the Fins fans think they're going to roll the Colts by 3 scores. We're going to get to that. We always get to our predictions with it. I'm going to get to that. I want to touch on what you were saying with Jacoby and with Lawrence. Lawrence, thank you for joining in, man. With Jacoby, does it slightly worry you that the way we play defense could play into the way he plays quarterback, which is there's the hesitancy, but he loves to take the short, wide open, like the dink and dunk. And that's what our defense does allow. Does it kind of plays in a little bit to how he wants to play and how he probably plays best as a quarterback, which is not, he doesn't take those risks. He's going to take like the little 5-yard out route, the little 2-yard dump whenever he can, the check down Jacoby a little bit. Does that worry you a little bit?
I think that's fair. But at the end of the day, Jacoby Brissett is Jacoby Brissett. Like he's only so good, right? Like if we do our job and we play defense the way that we're supposed to play defense, then we should beat them. I mean, it's just that simple. But if we play a bad version of football like we've played the last 3 weeks, well, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible. And anytime you let a quarterback, especially a backup quarterback, get comfortable back there, he feels no pressure. he's, it's like in basketball, that target just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as the game goes. You see a few shots go in and you start feeling really, really good about yourself. Man, I think you've got to be exotic. You've got to show him different looks. You've got to get some pressure on him. You've really, really, really got to get some pressure on him and get your hands on him, because the one thing Jacoby does have a little bit of a knack for doing is shaking guys off of his body and extending the plays a little bit. That's one thing. He has that big frame. He's pretty sturdy. We'll see, man. We are beaten, battered, and bruised on our back end at the cornerback position. I know TJ Carey went on IR today. We called a guy up. It's going to be a test, but it's time to it's time to shit or shine this weekend, man. I mean, that's.
Hey, can I just say, on our back end, the worst player on our back end has not been Rock Yassin. He has not been the worst.
100%.
He actually, in some publications, got rated as one of the best players on our defense for the last week against the Titans.
And that's fair. I mean, I think that's
I will take not hearing his name, because that means he's doing his job.
Yep. I think Xavier Rhodes was clearly not 100% in that game. He looked,
felt good to have him back.
He looked slow out there, man. I mean, he just looked like, oh my gosh, he's out of place this whole game. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. Lawrence said Rock has really actually looked good all this year. I'd say, Rock gets beat on that. Rock gets beat on those slant routes every once in a while, but you know what? It's not getting pass interference is thrown game after game after game. So I mean, you can live with that a little bit. I see Steven over there, man.
Could we see Zach in a 26 this year?
You just never know, man.
I'll take it. I'll take it. But so let's, we've talked about offense, defense. We've talked about the players. Let's go like we always do now. One or two keys that you feel like maybe a key for our offense, key for our defense. Yeah. We'll give ours. You guys, Lawrence, love that you're in here. Colts, love that you're in here. We want y'all's too. Not just you guys. Everybody who's in the chat, drop in them what you guys think the keys are. We're going to try to hit them. And then, as always, we'll go to our predictions. We want y'all's. But, Zach, what are some keys? What are maybe one or two keys you think to, God bless us, being able to talk about a win on Sunday?
Yeah, on offense, I think it all starts and stops with our ability to establish, Hines and Taylor. We got to use those two guys in whatever capacity. The thing that's so great about those two players for us is that even if the running game's not going 100%, those guys are capable of catching the football out of the backfield and still beating you. You can use those guys in multiple ways. And I like, this concept of using both of them in the backfield every once in a while. That's really hard, on a defense. And all you really want to do as an offense is you want to put stress on that defense. You want to cause something in that defense to think, oh my gosh, like what are we going to do here? This guy's going this way, this guy's going that way. So for me, it's using our backs. It's our bell cows, however you want to use them, whether it be screens, whether it be just, dumps out to the side, handing the ball off, just a steady dose 1-2 punch of Taylor and Hines. And then I think, from a passing standpoint, you're going to have to use those crossers a little bit more in this game. And you're going to have to take a couple shots, man. You're going to have a couple big chunk plays if you want to win this football game. It's just not going to come easy against a pretty good defense. And then as far as our defense goes, I think you're going to have to turn them over again, just like we did against the Titans. But I think that mantra of 7 men to the football and just that mentality, tackling that player, getting them down, not allowing those 3rd and longs, getting off the field. We don't need Zaire Franklin, running into a kicker to extend a play and then it turned into be a touchdown.
That was in
like that is just, it just drives you crazy, man. And it kills you, especially when you're having a bad season. When you're having a great season, sometimes your teams you feel like they overlook that, but it kills you when you're struggling to win football games. What are your keys, man?
So, I always joke. It's like, I'd love to be different. Content's always great when we're different, but I can't be different on the offensive side of the ball. It is. Carson's not 100%. We don't think he's going to be 100%, Best case scenario is potentially the Ravens Monday night game. He could be back to 100%, barring no setbacks. Take the ball out of his hands a little bit. He's so. I mean, I'm not on an island. I think there's a lot of Colts fans that are coming around. He's not been the problem. He's looked really good. You've seen the talent there sometimes, but take the ball out of his hands. Don't let him hurt himself because, Pat McAfee said it best. Like it's like Carson the wild card Wentz. Like he's like out there and he just doesn't give a damn about what happens to him. So Reich needs to give a damn because we do want him as I think it was Matt earlier said, we want him around in December playing if hopefully we're playing meaningful football. So yeah, turn it around. Just beat it with Jonathan Taylor. Get some passes out. I mean, the touchdown was from Naheem last week was the little dump off. Get him in space. He has improved between the tackle, and Lawrence can probably tell me like the deep dive in stats because that's what he does really well. That he's fantastic at it, but he's better in space. Get him in space and let him make some moves. And I'm gonna go. The crossers are important. I want to suck them up with the defense and hit a deep ball, man. Like have an explosive play. Put the defense back on its heels. Remind them that Carson does have a cannon for an arm and scare them because then that's going to loosen it up more to where then you can really let it loose. And kind of thirdly with that is I like the idea of them in the backfield. I think Kevin Bowe called it the wild pony. I would love to see them do like a little bit of wildcat with Hines and Taylor in the backfield.
Yeah.
And that's where they're rolling with it. It'd be really interesting to see. So, I mean, that's my offense. Defense, it's going to sound similar to the Rams. Dude, knock Jacoby down.
Yeah.
Get in his head.
Yeah.
Make him pump the ball several times. Make him pat the baby. Make him do whatever he needs to do. Because, there is a misnomer that he is an uber athletic quarterback. He is. We all know the play. We all love the play.
Yeah.
The Von Miller play. But that was an outlier. He is not this he's still. We joked last week. He's still running for that first down from 2 years ago. He's
not a gazelle.
He's not going to escape you. So hit him. Get in his head because if he doesn't have a good game, it doesn't matter anything else. I will tell you that this is the first game this year that I can't point to a player, like you said earlier in the episode, I can't point to a player that frightens the devil out of me on offense. We've had that every week. It's easy to forget we are 0-3 against 3 teams that could be playing the final weekend of the season.
Yeah.
I know how you feel about the Titans, but there is the potential. The Titans are still, to be the man, you got to beat the man. They did win the division.
Sure.
They do have talented players, but you're looking at they're really good teams, but the key's going to be, and you got to get to them. I want to see it from our edges. I've seen DeForest is a freak. And he gets the pressure. I want to see pressure from somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody else go hit him. Go knock him down. I'm not saying hurt him. Like I said, I love Jacoby. And I'm not even saying like Matthew Stafford where we said take him off his spot. Get in his head.
Absolutely.
That's what you need to do.
Because you could take confidence away from Jacoby Brissett for sure. I mean, Jacoby loses confidence as the game go on. Yeah, I mean, Y23K said, AQM, he really has flash, man. I mean, he really has. He's been the one guy that's played hard, consistent football for us. He's almost a little bit like Jabal Sheard used to be for us back a few years ago. High maximum effort guy you can really count on in the run game. And every once in a while he'll get you a sack as well.
Jacoby does like to fumble,
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I
mean, Lawrence chimes in with his, don't be predictable in the pass game. If you only throw quick outs, the secondary is really good in jump routes. So occasionally that O-line will have to step up and protect the deeper shots.
Yeah. 100%.
Running the ball is a must. Colts loyalists, run the ball until you're done owning their soul. Score every drive. Defense continue getting turnovers.
That's,
100%,
man. I mean,
Lawrence said Dolphins are a man pass defense. Use running back screens.
Yeah. And Lawrence made a great point earlier that I forgot to bring up. you're gonna have to hit chunk plays in this game, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like you if you think you're gonna win this football game throwing the ball 7, 8, 10, 11 yards at a time, you're gonna have to bust them open, man, for some big plays. And you're gonna have to throw that ball. That means your offensive line, whether it be max protect or whatever you're doing, is going to have to hold up for Carson Wentz because he's not gonna have a problem getting the ball out of his hands and getting it down the field. It's can you hold up long enough for those routes to develop? And I'd like to see him come in this game, first play of the game, play action and just throw a bomb. I mean, whether we complete it or not, just kind of really open up this defense against them and let them know, hey, we're going down the field a few times a day on you, and you can't just sit on our underneath routes all game long and just wait to pick us off. You want to do predictions?
Yeah, man. I mean, so as we get ready to do the predictions, you guys get y'all's ready to drop in the chat. Zach doesn't even know that I've got a fun little new thing. So here we go. I'm always trying to make it fun, man. I'm always trying to make things fun.
Let's do it.
Let's go, Zach. Let's get yours, and then I'll do mine. And then, like I said, make sure you guys, everybody, Y23K, Lawrence, Colts loyalist, Wentz, y'all drop them in. So, Zach, where are we going, man?
I don't think
0 for 3.
I don't think this is going to be an absolute beautiful game from the Indianapolis Colts, but I am going to predict that we win this football game 20-16. I just don't think Jacoby Brissett, although I do think they're going to get some field goals and they're going to have some drives, I don't see them putting the ball in the end zone consistently against us. And if they do, well, then the Colts are, probably going to get a top 10 pick next year if we're being 100% honest. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where we play so bad where they're just going up and down the field, scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. So I'm going 2016 Indianapolis Colts for the first win of the season.
Okay. So I've sat here thinking about it, and it's like, man, we've picked. It's a Colts podcast. I'm not gonna. Very rarely am I gonna pick them to lose. Okay. I'm gonna get to who said this, but they're really close to what I think. I'm going 28-14 Colts.
Okay.
I don't think it's high scoring. I think we're going to run the ball. And I go 14 for the Dolphins because we've had Jacoby in-house, and he just doesn't put up a ton of numbers. I mean, I think we all remember that 5-game stretch where he looked really good, but there was weak schedule. There's a lot of factors when it comes into that. I'm just, if you like, you said it earlier this week, we've said it in this one. If you can't beat the Dolphins with Jacoby, then what's you're staring at 0-4, 0-5?
Yeah.
So let's 28-14. So I laughed because as I got ready to say it, Jack put up 27-17 Colts. Colts loyalists, 23-16 Colts.
That's
fair. Think the idea is that, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, you hope this is potentially a get-right game.
Yeah.
Lawrence threw in. He's been right the past 2 games. I had us losing both. Lawrence, I toyed with it last week. I think Indy's going to come out physical and win 27-17. Red zone scoring gets fixed. I mean, it's the consensus seems to be as people are popping them in here, middle, Colts winning, but like that 20-28, 10-17 for the Dolphins. We hope the defense gets right. We hope that we can get our red zone scoring. There's just, you just got to kind of hang your hat on hope at this point.
Yeah. Cautiously optimistic is what I am.
Cautiously. And I think you said it best too in your episode earlier. We do always point to the 1-5 start, but that's a different team, man. And Andrew Luck, number 12, is not playing QB this year.
No.
I mean, I like Carson, but he ain't 12. Y23K popped up 31-20.
There you
Colts.
go. There you go, man.
I like the suspense there, man. I like it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's gonna be an interesting weekend. I I've got nothing. I'm we've talked it to death. We've talked about,
Sure.
what to expect, like we always do. I will say, as we kind of wind this down, expect, like you guys always do, Zach or I will drop something probably tail end of this week, leading in, latest roster moves, players who look like they're not going to play, maybe an update on what's going on,
Sure.
and then our reaction. And God willing, it's a Colts victory, because I don't think Colts Nation can take another loss.
Yeah,
it's rough.
I was thinking about that this morning, Steven. I was thinking, this is my week to do the reaction after the game, and I was thinking, my gosh, am I going to be the guy that has to come on and talk about the Colts being 0-4? We don't want that. I know we keep saying it, but I just really feel like the Indianapolis Colts are going to win this football game, man. I do. I don't think it's going to be beautiful. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but I think we get back to our roots this week. I think we found something with the run game a little bit last week, and I think we're going to continue to kind of push on that and kind of keep pushing that button. But like we always do here at the end of the show, like, rate, review, subscribe. And we just ask you guys to join the No Horsing Around family. We're so grateful for all the interaction, all the DMs, all the messages. And we're even good, when you're not agreeing with what we have to say, because that's what it's all about. We're using our voices to allow you to have a chance to use your voices. So I wanted to say thank you again. We're shooting for 500 subscribers. We're not that far off. I think as of we recorded this podcast, I think we were 17 back. So that's pretty attainable. So the next time that we do a live stream next week, hopefully celebrating a win and talking about that Monday night football game against the Ravens, we've got 500 of you that's joined the No Horsing Around family.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better. Like Zach said, like, rate, review, subscribe, join the family. We have a ton of fun. We love being able to interact with you guys. We love other content creators jumping on here. Colts Loyalist, having Lawrence jump on like he's been doing the last couple of weeks. I said this before too. Just breathe a little, you guys. It's gonna happen. We feel like it's gonna happen. So we always end it the same way, you guys. I love you. I know Zach loves you. We're out of here.